15 movies that literally killed audience members. Part 1.
If you are brand new to our channel, we invite you to take a moment to subscribe. Just click on the lit red button as well as the gray bell. Why the bell? Well, it will let you know every time we post a new video.
1. The Creeping Unknown. If you were to ask the Guinness Book of Records, there has only ever been one death as the result of watching a horror film. While people will doubt this claim, we will treat it as one of the most truthful reports. The film, The Creeping Unknown, was originally called The Quatermass Experiment. It was a 1955 British film that was based on the BBC serial The Quatermass Experiment. Since the film received an X rating, the title was changed to focus on that. When the film came to US in 1956, not many people were familiar with the Quatermass Experiment, so they changed the title to The Creeping Unknown. Then on the 6th of November, 1956, a 9-year-old boy died while watching the restricted film. It was said he died of a ruptured artery, and the film scares were partially blamed. Whether the cause was the film or not, the reports showed the world that people can die from fright. 2. Macabre. No one died while watching this film that we know of, but we want to include it because it was advertised as such. For William Castle, no gimmick was too far-fetched. As we discussed above, having people faint in theaters was a great way to drum up interest for the Tingler, but the film he made before the Tingler was designed to make people believe that you could actually die from watching it. The film was called Macabre, and it was released in 1958. To make some hype for the horror film, Castle took out a large insurance policy from Lloyd's of London that issued a $1,000 life insurance policy to every viewer when they bought a ticket. The policy promised to pay out in the off chance that they died of fright while watching the film. Effectively, this was a dare. See if you can last. Castle wanted people to chicken out. The more scared non-viewers there were, the more brave viewers there were, and both the scared and braced would be talking about the film. You can't lose. 3. The Conjuring 2. In both the most recent and the most publicized event on this list, a man passed away while watching The Conjuring 2 in Sri Balasubramaniar Cinema in Tiruvannamalai, a town in the Indian state of Tamil Nadu. The story suggests that the man complained of chest pains during one of the film's most frightening scenes and he fainted soon afterward. An ambulance rushed him to the hospital, but it was already too late. He was declared dead at Old Government Hospital. To make matters weirder, the man's cadaver was ordered to be sent to a medical hospital, but somewhere along the route it and the driver of the transport disappeared. 4. Get Young. In a sad twist of fate, 78 children, all, except for one, under the age 16 died while watching the short and ironically titled comedy film, Get Young, 1926, in Laurier Palace Theatre in Montreal, Canada. After the film had started, one of the viewers discarded a cigarette, which caught the floorboards on fire. The audience were so consumed by the film that, by the time they realized a fire had started, it had grown too large and out of control. Due to the ensuing rush to get out of the theater, the doors were blocked because they opened inward, and everyone attempted to push their way out. By the time the fire department had worked their way in, the fire, the stampede and the smoke had done the damage. 5. Avid. There were reports after James Cameron's Avatar came out that some sad and lonely people were contemplating suicide because the fictional setting, the planet of Pandora, was not real. Luckily, nothing came of that, because that would be so stupid, but there was one death attributed to the film. A 42-year-old Taiwanese man died of a stroke when watching the 3D film. Even though the man had a history of high blood pressure, Dr. Peng Chin-chi suggested that it's likely that the overexcitement from watching the movie triggered his symptoms. It's probably not the type of publicity that Cameron envisioned for the film, but at least someone was excited to watch that movie. 6. A Two-Headed Man. Sometime in 1997, a theater in Casmali was filled with children watching the film A Two-Headed Man. The news report suggests that during the film, the theater lights went off, which freaked everyone out. One child, probably thinking the fictional world was crashing in on reality, screamed at the top of his lungs, which sent everyone into a panic. The crowds of children began running frantically for the exits, trampling anything and everything in their path. In the end, 7 children were trampled to death in a horrific scene. While it can't be put on the film entirely, you have to think that, if these kids were watching a comedy, they might not have reacted with such fear and panic when the lights suddenly went out. 7. The Passion of the Christ. Mel Gibson's The Passion of the Christ took some criticism for its violent portrayal of the last 12 hours of Jesus' life. It was called shocking and excessive, but probably the harshest criticism came when a woman died while watching it in theaters. It's unclear if the 56-year-old had any pre-existing heart conditions, but witnesses say that she suffered a heart attack during the climactic crucifixion. This bloody moment is intense, but it seems a bit crazy that someone would suffer such a biological response to it. Maybe it's partly because of the emotional investment to the character being portrayed on screen, but we can't be sure. 8. Freaks. When Todd Browning decided to make his cult film Freaks, he chose to use real sideshow performers to make the impact on the audience all the more powerful. The result was massively controversial. People complained, the cast and crew revolted, not wanting to share the screen or the set with these performers, and the audience members were sickened. Famously, one woman threatened to sue the filmmakers in the studio because she suffered a miscarriage during a test screening. While this is stretching the die while watching classification a bit, we're still going to count it, because technically the film did result in a death. Because of all of this bad press, Freaks needed to be drastically cut and edited, and the final film was not well received. Even though it gained a following years later, the initial version of the film was lost.